connect more than 70 countries across Asia, Europe and Asia via a network of railways, highways and ports. And the BRI strikes a chord with Jokowi. After all, it's in line with his 2014 election campaign promise to overhaul and upgrade the country's woeful infrastructure. At least 4 provinces outside Java have been designated as project locations under the BRI. And the injection of foreign capital is necessary to help finance President Jokowi's infrastructure push. But the territorial dispute over the waters of the Natuna Islands has now threatened to jeopardize ties between the two countries.
To be honest, Indonesia can continue to develop its infrastructure without BRI, without China. But there would be significant cuts in projects outside Java, including Jokowi's pet project of building a new capital in the middle of a Borneo jungle. Without BRI, Indonesia would fall back to its old Java-centric template, focusing on the main island. And now you see non-Chinese investors are present in this main island Java, including in development of roads, ports, and energy projects. Western and Japanese investors, beyond oil and mining, they are reluctant to invest outside Java because that will bring more costs on logistics, on licensing issues, and also on construction processes. So if China did not step in to build Indonesia's first bullet train system in West Java, the Japanese would have been more than happy to do it. The Japanese wanted that project badly, but lost to China, who successfully convinced Jokowi in 2015.
Diplomacy is the best choice. War is the last resort and will not be the first preferred choice at all. And war is easy to launch, but is very difficult to end. And I think we need to really consider the situation not only for the current generation, but for hundreds of generations to come. And I would say long-standing, sustainable friendship and goodwill between China and Indonesia will be a huge pillar for stability and growth in the South China region and involving all corners of the South China Sea. And I think this is the best choice for China as well as for Indonesia.
The countries, Indonesia itself has been rapidly militarizing its forces over the past 10 years with this plan known as the minimum essential force. You will see there is a lot more surface combatants. They have improved the capabilities of their submarine fleet. And I think this is the only Southeast Asian country outside Singapore that can mount.
March 2022. At a site deep within the jungle of East Kalimantan province, President Joko Widodo officially launched the construction of Indonesia's new capital, Nusantara. 34 governors from across the country and a number of cabinet ministers joined the ceremony on Borneo Island. More than 1,200 kilometers from the current capital, Jakarta.
Mudah-mudahan tetap berdoa semoga hidayah dan barokah dari Allah Subhanahu wa taala memberikan kemudahan dan kelancaran kita dalam membangun ibu kota Nusantara ini.
Nusantara, which literally means archipelago, represents President Jokowi's most ambitious infrastructure project to date. The government wants the new capital to promote growth beyond Java Island and ease pressure on the megacity of 10 million people. Jakarta today suffers from chronic congestion, frequent floods, and air pollution. The city is also sinking rapidly. The massive project is estimated to cost a whopping 467 trillion rupiah, or $32 billion, and it could take up to 20 years to complete. Analysts expect Chinese investors to fill the funding gap.
On the 16th of March, President Xi Jinping telephoned President Jokowi, expressing the desire for China to continue to work with Indonesia in the economic field, in the vaccine cooperation, and also in supporting Indonesian suggestion as the president of G20. Now, this is quite significant a development. I think it shows that China, in fact, wanted to be friendly with Indonesia. Jokowi wanted China to help in the development of the new capital in Kalimantan. And this will make Indonesian-China relation tighter, if that happens.
China is also Indonesia's biggest trading partner and investor under the Belt and Road Initiative. Launched in 2013 by President Xi Jinping, the Infrastructure Initiative aims to connect more than 70 countries across Asia, Europe, and Asia via a network of railways, highways, and ports. And the BRI strikes a chord with Jokowi. After all, it's in line with his 2014 election campaign promise to overhaul and upgrade the country's woeful infrastructure. At least 4 provinces outside Java have been designated as project locations under the BRI. And the injection of foreign capital is necessary to help finance President Jokowi's infrastructure push. But the territorial dispute over the waters of the Natuna Islands has now threatened to jeopardize ties between the two countries.
I mean, to be honest, Indonesia can continue to develop its infrastructure without BRI, without China. But there would be significant cuts in projects outside Java, including Jokowi's pet project of building a new capital in the middle of a Borneo jungle. Without BRI, Indonesia would fall back to its old Java-centric template, focusing on the main island. And now you see non-Chinese investors are present in this main island Java, including in development of roads, ports, and energy projects. Western and Japanese investors, beyond oil and mining, they are reluctant to invest outside Java because that will bring more costs on logistics, on licensing issues, and also on construction processes. So if China did not step in to build Indonesia's first bullet train system in West Java, the Japanese would have been more than happy to do it. The Japanese wanted that project badly, but lost to China, who successfully convinced Jokowi in 2015. So Indonesia can definitely build without China, but should they?
I think that in terms of the Belt and Road Initiative, Indonesia is indeed a very important country. If we look back 2013, it is just in Jakarta when President Xi Jinping visited Indonesia, when he proposed the Belt and Road Initiative. It is just in Jakarta, so it's a very important country. And also, it is exactly that year, 2013, that China and Indonesia becoming the comprehensive strategic partnership relationship. And also, the president of Indonesia proposed this global ocean forum, which China also sees and supports. This ocean strategy, and we think that maybe we can work together, both the global ocean forum and the Belt and Road Initiative. Maybe there are something that we can work together to establish both of us as maritime states.
Indonesia has offered 28 projects worth $91.1 billion to Chinese developers. The projects include seaports and industrial estates, power plants, smelters, and tourism estates. Chinese-funded projects include the railway linking Jakarta with West Java's capital of Bandung, which is scheduled for completion in 2023. Since 2013, Chinese companies have invested at least $12 billion into steel and nickel projects. China is also one of Indonesia's biggest trading partners since 2013. So, given Indonesia's deep economic links with China for many of its critical infrastructural projects, can it afford to take an aggressive stance against China in dealing with the Natuna Islands dispute?
When it comes to the South China Sea dispute, Indonesia is in a very unique position, a dilemma, if you will, because Indonesia, between Indonesia and China, I think the amount of trade that goes on between the two countries is very significant. I think China is still one of Indonesia's biggest trading partners, and in addition to that, Indonesia has been increasingly importing Chinese weapons. You are seeing a lot more Chinese weapons being deployed across various units of the Indonesian armed forces today than you did 10 years ago. This includes anti-aircraft guns, anti-ship missiles, vessel combat management systems, and the list goes on. So it's a very unique dilemma in which a lot of the Indonesian armed forces requirements are being fulfilled by Chinese contractors.
And like any other country with strategic intelligence capacity, China views each country in Southeast Asia differently. Indonesia is viewed as Southeast Asia's biggest economy by far, with the largest market for Chinese products, the largest natural resource producer for Chinese industries, and the largest space for infrastructure development that answers China's overproduction issues. At the same time, Indonesia has a stable political environment despite its very active democracy.
The Chinese-funded Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway link project is a testimony to the close relations between leaders of the two countries. The 142-kilometer rail line is scheduled for completion next year after delays caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and technical glitches.
Ini proyek yang sangat penting, yang dimana kedua pimpinan negara, Presiden Joko Widodo dan juga Presiden Xi Jinping sangat intens ya memonitor dan memastikan keberhasilannya. Beberapa kali mereka teleponan, selalu diskusi terkait kereta cepat Jakarta-Bandung, karena ini penting untuk membuktikan kepada dunia bahwa Indonesia dan juga China dapat berkolaborasi dengan baik dan membangun sesuatu infrastruktur fasilitas publik yang nantinya dapat bermanfaat bagi ekonomi Indonesia maupun China dan juga bermanfaat bagi masyarakat.
But in spite of their close ties, does that necessarily mean that Indonesia will bow to China's pressure and give up its maritime claims in waters surrounding the Natuna Islands?
In the Xi Jinping telephone conversation with Jokowi, Xi Jinping says that let us, these two major countries, two big countries, cooperate and develop together. Of course, if China wanted to have part of the Indonesian territory as Chinese territory, I do not think that it will be tolerated by Indonesia.
But what impact will that have on the current economic cooperation between China and Indonesia? Will the territorial dispute undermine the close economic ties between the two countries? Batam Island, a small but busy island in the Riau archipelago, just 20 kilometers off the Singapore southern coast. Here, impounded foreign ships have become quite a common sight these days. They're kept and secured to the docks by the Marine and Fisheries Resources authorities in Batam. The detained crew members of these vessels are now awaiting trial for alleged illegal fishing in Indonesian waters, a serious offense under the Indonesian law.
Ini adalah barang bukti yang disita dari kapal-kapal yang ditangkap, kapal yang melakukan illegal fishing. Ini adalah barang bukti berupa jaring troll. Nah, ini jaring yang merusak ekosistem di perairan ini. Nah, ini kuat sekali, ini bisa menghancurkan karang-karang. Nah, ini adalah satu unit jaring troll
the crew members could wait for up to 30 days before the actual trial begins. If found guilty, they can be jailed up to 6 years under Indonesia's shipping law or fined up to $41,000. And these impounded foreign vessels are used as material evidence to charge those involved in the alleged offenses.
Ini adalah dermaga tempat sadarnya kapal-kapal yang diamankan. Ini adalah kapal yang melakukan illegal fishing. Kanan kiri ini adalah yang melakukan kegiatan penangkapan ilegal yang ada di Laut Natuna Utara. Jadi di ad-hoc ke sini untuk dilakukan penyidikan lebih lanjut.
There are, however, no signs of Chinese fishing boats or their crew members in the facility here in Batam Island. But the fact is, there have been numerous cases of foreign vessels being impounded or turned away from the Indonesian waters of late due to increasing patrols by the Indonesian authorities around the disputed region. Illegal fishing activities were at an all-time high between December 2019 and January 2020. That was when nearly 60 Chinese vessels were found to have crossed into Indonesia's exclusive economic zone, or EEZ. Indonesia is not a claimant state in the South China Sea dispute, but the two countries have been embroiled in a diplomatic tug-of-war over the EEZ, which partially falls within China's so-called 9-dash line. It's the vague boundary used by China to lay claim to about 90% of the South China Sea.
To defend the territorial integrity, I think, is a serious matter. I think, although Indonesian military capability, I think, is not very effective yet, I do not think that Indonesia would give up. Last year, August, for instance, it was the largest joint military exercise between Indonesia and the United States, involving 4,500 personnel and soldiers. And then also Air Force and other forces. I think it's very significant in terms of the security policy in Indonesia. It is argued that that exercise, in fact, is also linked to the defense of Natuna waters.
Even if the South China Sea claimants were to combine all their military assets together and fight as a unified force against China, it will pale in comparison. China's military modernization over the past 10 years has been very remarkable. It cannot compare with any of those the claimants to the South China Sea disputes. That's the difference Indonesia has over the rest of the countries. Indonesia itself has been rapidly militarizing its forces over the past 10 years with this plan known as the minimum essential force. You will see there is a lot more surface combatants. They have improved the capabilities of their submarine fleet. And I think this is the only Southeast Asian country outside Singapore that can mount a serious challenge to Beijing's military might in the South China Sea.
But the use of force is never a preferred option by claimant states in the region as a means of settling the dispute. For Indonesia at least, the show of military force merely serves as a deterrent effect against threats to its maritime sovereignty and territorial integrity.
So when the chips are down, if the territorial integrity of Indonesia is under threat, then the government would react. If the government did not react, the Indonesian military will act. Because Indonesian military, of course, is a force which is supposed to defend the country boundaries and territory. It is a public knowledge that there is some division between the military and the foreign ministry, for instance. And especially defense ministry under Prabowo Subianto. So I think it seems to me that the defense of the EEZ, I think, is an important issue here. And then I do not think that China would, at this particular moment, would push too much so that it would make Indonesia react rather unfriendly.
The reality is Indonesia has become increasingly wary over Beijing's intentions. So, if it does act tough against the incursions of Chinese vessels into its territorial waters, there's concern that the Scarborough Shoals incident may well repeat itself. The shoal, which is located 120 nautical miles inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, has since come under Chinese de facto control following a standoff with the Philippines Coast Guards in 2012.
When Scarborough Shoal was taken over by the Chinese, it came against the backdrop of a very weak Philippine military presence in the region. The Chinese sort of effectively strolled into the island with very little resistance from the Philippines, and understandably so, because Manila is not able to mount a military challenge against Beijing. So the same thing will not happen to Indonesia today, because Indonesia, like I said, is able to punch back given the number of military assets that it has deployed to the region. And I think Beijing understands if it tries to do what it did against Scarborough Shoal in the Philippines, against Indonesia, it's going to be suffering from a very big black eye.
The territorial dispute puts into question the role of the region's largest grouping, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. ASEAN has been pushing for the establishment of a code of conduct with Beijing to try and settle the dispute once and for all. But in spite of all their good intentions and recent promises, it's still struggling to bridge fundamentally divergent interests of all parties in the South China Sea dispute.
Yes, I think, as all of us know, ASEAN in fact is not a homogeneous group. It's not united. Nevertheless, it is a common interest, I think, to have ASEAN viable, because if you want to have a role to play, if you want to make the region a stable and peaceful one, then ASEAN had to get united. This is a big challenge for the ASEAN states.
As far as Indonesia is concerned, the country's reliance on Chinese investments and trade has put Jakarta in a rather difficult position, especially when the issue of national pride comes into play. In spite of Indonesia's reliance on China for trade and infrastructure developments, it's not prepared to sacrifice its own territorial integrity. Other than military confrontation, diplomacy and cooperation seem to be the only way forward to resolving the crisis.
So the option that both countries are looking at now is how to manage movements over the waters through some sort of cooperation. Now, this can be stretched to a joint development of the deep sea gas resources without fussing about border lines. Indonesia is still far from actively developing the Natuna gas deposit, and Indonesia still needs better technology to detect those hydrocarbon mother lodes.
We need to understand that the 9-dash line, a part of it cuts into Indonesia's claim for an exclusive economic zone. It's very unlikely that both countries will back down from their respective claims. So until we see a way out, in the code of conduct, perhaps there might be a way out. But for these claims, I don't think there ever will be a solution, because either countries will not recognize each other's construct in that part of the world.
I think when we involve in any kind of territorial dispute, diplomacy is the best choice. War is the last resort and will not be the first preferred choice at all. And war is easy to launch, but is very difficult to end. And I think we need to really consider the situation not only for the current generation, but for hundreds of generations to come. And I would say long-standing, sustainable friendship and goodwill between China and Indonesia will be a huge pillar for stability and growth in the South China region, and involving all corners of the South China Sea. And I think this is the best choice for China as well as for Indonesia.
While diplomacy seems to be the best way to moderate China's growing assertiveness, it remains unclear for now if the strategy will achieve its objective, especially when territorial ambition comes into conflict with the country's national pride.